traditionally animation, where myself and Andrew would have, we actually started in Ballyfermot College in 1990. Still paper, still hand-drawn, everything was done. And computers were only starting to come in then, more so on the computer side of things, and computer 3D animation. But up to like 4 or 5 years ago, even 6 years ago, it was still very much paper, and there's still a lot of paper animation done. But today now, most animation studios, as you probably see on the floor out there, it's very much computer-based.
In Ballyfermot, it was pure craft, really, you were taught, and it was very much in the old school, the Disney style of classical animation. So, I essentially, all I did was draw for 5 years that I was there. It has changed kind of immeasurably in the last 20 years from where it was and what I expected the workplace would be like. Well, maybe holding the baseball bat then, right? On a kind of nerdy basis, I like the immediacy of kind of getting a thought down on paper, straight from the brain, down the arm onto the page, without having a computer in the middle, Even though I see the vast advantages of digital technology, and certainly we couldn't be doing the scale of production we're doing with the amount of staff we're doing if we were doing it 20 years ago, It's made life a lot easier to produce animation. That's a really good idea. If we can just
In saying that, we are doing a short at the moment called Reflections for the Film Board, which will be hopefully finished by the end of the year, and it's traditional hand drawing, So we do go back to it, because it really is a labour of love that when we want to do something that has a different edge, sometimes Flash or Photoshop just cut it, so that we move back to the traditional tools.
Animation, most people think of cartoons and kids' TV, and it's an amalgamation really of drawing and storytelling, really, and or was when I started. And so the storytelling thing is probably the bit that has the greatest sort of connection to the area, really. You go into any corner bar here and you'll get your ear talked off. And essentially that's what we do, is we sell stories, really. And the craft aspect of it is, there was an apprenticeship, that I had to do, and Gary had to do when we started out. And it is very much, you can't rush it. You've got to do it step by step, and it's a handy craft, really. In the end of the day, you need a certain amount of skill, but you've got to learn the ropes. My dad worked in Guinness across the road there, and my great-grandfather, so I was kind of expected to have that as a fallback. Yeah, my dad was a labourer, and my grandfather was, he drove if you look around here, there's little rails on the ground. He drove the little trains with the barrels of stout and the bags of hops and yeast from the vat houses. That's what he did. And my great-grandfather was a bargeman. And he'd come up the lock from Athlone, bringing up the grain, essentially direct from the farms, and he'd bring it straight to the brewery. But he was an employee of Guinness. All my uncles worked there, and I think that was a generational thing. There were Guinness families. There were entire neighbourhoods of people who worked for Guinness. It was a massive operation. So I grew up with that kind of mythology, and I loved coming down here as a kid. My dad used to let me drive the forklifts and stuff when I was 6 and 7 years old, and I thought, can't wait to get a job here. But didn't go that way.
The area itself, has moved on, but the people who work here still have a link to the past. They're not working in Guinnesses anymore. Andrew's certainly not working in Guinnesses unless he's moonlighting, I don't know, but I think it's a nice link, really, with Kavaleer Productions, who are, working just about to commence on a show for BBC, and what his father and his grandfather did years before.
And my dad worked, just across the road. He was in James's Gate for like 30 years. My mother worked right behind us here, actually on Hambury Lane in Ruddle's Tobacco Factory. That's right, and they met actually when they were both working here. So I'm very much I grew up in the suburbs, but my whole family are very much kind of Liberties in origin. Yeah, it's great. I think it's a great area. I think it's the best part of Dublin, really. And it has its problems, but it's got character, you know, dripping out of it, and you know, I think a lot of Dublin has lost that. But I mean, it's around here, it's the true blue, I think, and always will be, I hope.